is going to go into in-depth of how we can not only we ourselves assess these provisions that the government has made, but we will be able to train others, immediate others around us in our circumstances, and we will be able to share with them the methods and experiences we're going to get tonight or this evening at this program. So I want every leader to pay good attention to this, because the government has provided almost for every situation that one can find himself or herself in this COVID-19 season and period. So feel free to ask questions when the time comes. And Pastor Bumi, thank you so much for bringing this great enlightenment and training to us leaders that are all congregating together for this program.
Thank you so much, Bishop. Thank you for IMAC and all of the IMAC directors. I can see one of the IMAC directors here, Reverend Stephen Apostle. It's good to have you along always. Thank you for all your support and all your work behind the scenes to ensure that this kind of program comes to being. I also want to thank another director, Trustee Christabel, for ensuring that this program also comes to pass. And I want to thank Bishop for his vision for the faith groups and community leaders, particularly at this time. I think one of the challenges we have as leaders is the demand that those we're leading place on us in this kind of seasons. And as you would know, as a BAME person, the demand, it's even more stringent, more poignant from our people, expecting us to have the answers. And I'm hoping that at some point this evening, we can have some of those answers for our people. We can begin to move forward with being able to signpost others, those who come to us to get help where it's necessary, and also to help them to see how they can progress in their own endeavors. Before I start sharing, I also want to thank the government of the United Kingdom for providing us with funding to be able to run this type of event. They provided us with the opportunity to gather together everyone tonight, and it is through those funding that the government has given in this season that has helped us. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because you also can access some of those fundings that the government has made available, and we will look into that, because tonight in this particular session, and we're going to run a few of this, but this session is about me opening up some of the opportunities that are actually available for us. I want to say something which may sound ridiculous almost, but the point is that in this season, there are more opportunities now for BAMEs. If you're a BAME-led organization, this is a season, one of those rare seasons that come up where you are able to actually move forward and progress and prosper. You know, in this season, this is a season. This is that type of season. It has come around for you on this occasion. So I want you to know that a lot of things that we're going to hear tonight are actual possibilities. I'm glad that some of the pastors who were here the last time I shared some of this stuff actually put into practice, and I've received the funding that we discussed on the last meeting we shared on this occasion. So that proves the point that what we share actually works for those who are going to go and work it. But you have to work it to receive the result of it. So I really thank God for your lives, and I can guarantee you that your time this evening will be well spent. What's important for us is not so much what I have to say only, but the questions that you ask me is going to help us to move and advance the evening. So I'd like you to understand the way we're going to run the session. If we're talking about you know, how things are going to run, what's going to happen is that I'm going to speak for a while, then I'll pause and allow you to ask questions. Then I'll go to the next section and I'll pause, you ask questions, and we do it like that. I want to ask us also as a housekeeping for us to manage our own microphones where we are, our own audio system. So, you know, I can see that everybody has muted themselves. So we're getting very much more Zoom accustomed these days. We are Zoomites, if we like. Is there no word like that in the Bible? I think there is. Okay, we're Zoomites. So we understand how these things work. So yeah, you're managing yourself already. Praise God. So, and there's also people who are joining us from different localities. There's some local leaders on board. There's some, we're going to be talking to lots of different groups of people, faith groups from different organizations are joining us also. So we really are happy to be presenting this particular part of Holding On projects. So let's go straight into what we're going to cover today. So I'm going to share my slides with you. It's the bit that always gets a little bit, you're kind of thinking, okay, what's going to happen here now? Is it going to work as we want it to? Okay, yeah, it's flowing. All right, so here is the flyer for this evening. Many of you will have received it either through our radio broadcast or through our publicity that has gone out on WhatsApp or through other mediums like our Facebook and our websites that we are promoting this. So you can see up there that the sponsors are the government and the National Lottery Community Fund. Actually, the National Lottery Community Fund, or this particular fund, is the government community COVID Community Response Fund. That's the full detail of it. But then we see our lovely IMAC, International Ministry of, let me go back to that. I wonder whether I just went forward, okay. Yeah, International Ministerial Alliance of Churches. And this is the Holding On project. And today we are going to talk about the list of funding opportunities, what is funded, what is direct and indirect, COVID-19 effect, critical application notes, and a lot more. And my name is boomytokan, if you are seeing me for the first time, and I'm a senior consultant from the School of Social Sustainability, where we help people to build sustainable social enterprises or charities over the long haul. So today we are going to learn, like I said, the list of opportunities. You'll be able to know what is funded, what kind of projects will be funded, and what is direct and indirect COVID-19 effect, and what is critical application notes. And like I said, we're going to have some Q&A, and I've done the housekeeping. One of the reasons why it's important for us to start the Holding On project with funding is because when we have a strong financial base, we can answer some of the questions that people bring to us. We can give food to some of the people that are in need. We can give money to some of the people who are in need. We can help them also to run their own projects. I think one of the blessings, I would say, that we have as leaders in the community is that when people come to us, we can spot opportunities in them. And even when we are not able to finance their projects from our pockets, we can at least use some of the information tonight to signpost them to the right places so that they can actually start projects. Now, sometimes what actually helps our own organizations is the actions that the people we're leading take. It may not be the actions we take, but it will be the actions that those people that we're leading take that actually helps to promote the overall ethos or the overall, maybe if you're looking at size, or the overall impact of our own organization. So we're not going to be shy to direct people to the right places. We're not going to be shy to signpost people and say, hey, this project sounds like it could get funding. So this is the list of the funding organizations that you can pursue. And one of the good things about IMAC, which by the vision that Bishop Joel has, is that is also going to produce a resource pack, and the list of the funding organizations that I'm going to show you today will be in that resource pack so that you would have it in your possession. So let's get started now. Actually, before we talk about, just as a little bit of an intro, I was saying to you earlier on that COVID-19 has offered an opportunity. Now, it's not a good thing that people have died as a result of COVID-19, God forbid. It's not a good thing. However, in that devastation, in that pain and grief, there has come opportunity to do something about it. Not to do something about those who have been directly affected, but those also who have been indirectly affected. And it just depends on how we visualize the state that we're in. If we see it as there's nothing we can do, everything is bad, there's no progress, then that's kind of what we get from this. But if we look at it as, wow, okay, what can we do now with what's happening? What can be done? So someone like what Bishop Joel is doing, is like he's looking at it and saying, okay, we know that a lot of leaders are going through very tough times, but what can we do to support them? What can we do to help them? And as such, the Holding On Project has come into being because of such sight and foresight by him. So by way of this, because of COVID-19, the government has released, okay, before I even go there, because of COVID-19, because of the disproportionate numbers of Black and Asian minority ethnic groups, the BAMEs, because of those groups of people, because of the effect, the disproportionate effect of COVID-19 on Black people and Asian people, the government is pouring out a lot of funding into our communities to help us cope with the demand and the excess, perhaps challenges that we would have as BAMEs, as ethnic groups. So therefore, there is funding available. I'm not going to say that it's a case of just writing on scrap of paper and then money will be in your account. No, I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just saying that there is still opportunities for us to access funding. Okay, I beg your pardon. I'm going to just that should have been off anyway. Don't know why that should be ringing. Oh, I left it on just in case before we started. Okay, so there is funding available for us. So let's start now going to some of the funding that's available and we talk around it. Now, the first fund is a 370 million fund that has been made available for small and medium-sized charities. Now, if you are a community organization, you're more likely to be a charity or to be a limited by guarantee or to be a community interest company. Now, there is funding available for us. Apart from that funding, the government gave the lottery fund, and the reason why the government gave the lottery fund, I think, is because the lottery fund has a very wide database of organizations they are funded in the past or organizations that are being funded by them. So the lottery fund as an institution or an organization is very positioned to have received that funding from the government and then distribute it because they have the mechanism and the structure to do so. So therefore, applications going to the lottery fund or hundreds, actually, yeah, I would say thousands of applications has gone to the lottery fund. Now, what's interesting is we got a letter from the lottery fund yesterday. I think they started sending it out yesterday. Anyway, we got ours yesterday that said that out of the 200 million that they started with, or the funding they allocated, they actually now have got applications of 130 million. So on the 17th of August, they're going to stop accepting applications for the government side of the COVID-19 Community Fund, but you can still apply for COVID-related or COVID response projects from their own funding. So what's happened is when the government gave them this money, they stopped giving out their own money. So their own money is still there, which they haven't given out, but they started giving out the government money because the government wanted them to do so. So they started doing that. But now that they've received a lot of applications, they're not going to close that for a while and then open up their own. So to be honest, what they're saying is we're closing this one, but this one is open. That's what I mean. It's the same thing. So for us, it's the same thing. Oh, you're closing that. Oh, this one is open. Okay, no problem. We'll simply apply on this one. So it's really, yeah. So I don't want you to hear the word, oh, they've closed the fund. Don't hear that. That's not what I said. I said they closed the government one and opened their own because they still had their own money and they need to give out their own money as well. So we should understand that. The second fund, and this is also this is the London Community Fund. Now, the Mayor of London is also given money, made money available to local charities and local organizations too. And all this is done by application online. And I must say, I will have to say that it's been simplified over the COVID period. It used to be a little bit more complex, but it's been simplified in order to ensure that more BAME organizations, more Black and Black and Asian minority ethnic groups access this funding. So there's the London Community Fund. Now, with the lottery fund, you can either apply for up to £10,000 or over £10,000. Now, as we go on, I'm going to tell you what you should apply for if this is your first time, what you apply for if you've been good for a while. Anyway, so we're looking at the fund. The same, it's very similar to the London Community Fund. London Community Fund also, there's an application for up to 10,000 and there's an application for up to £50,000 for some organizations that they can apply for. So the funding is there. So if you have a project that can be delivered in London, this is a good thing. If you have a project that can be delivered anywhere in the UK, then the lottery fund is the one to go for first. Then we have other funds like the London Community Fund Response Fund is the same as that's what's got 2 million. Actually, what they've done, if your organization is based in London, what they've done is they've opened that funding up in waves. So they had the first wave, they've had the second wave, and the third wave finished on July 30th, but they're going to open it up again for the fourth wave. And we're not sure how many waves they're going to have, but we know a fourth wave is coming. So, and normally what happens is they have these waves so that they can deal with the applications they've received, give out that funding, and then open up the fund again. That's all it is. So it's not like, say, it's closed. And then there are depending on where you are in the UK, I would suggest that every city, just like London has the London Community Response Fund, every city in the UK will also have a community fund. So it depends on where you are. Then there's the Heart of England Community Fund that gives £1,500 of food parcels. Now, one of the major areas of funding that the government has helped with, the government has recognized that there are lots of people on 0-hour contracts. That is, individuals who do not have recourse to public funds. The government has recognized that those people exist and must be supported because they're not going to be furloughed. So therefore, such people also need food. So projects that talk about food, and we're going to look at that in a moment, but I'm just saying that because we can see here on the screen that the Heart of England Community Fund is giving out £1,500 in parcel for food, or food parcels. Then there is the YAP Charitable Trust that gives out £3,000. There's the UK Community Foundation that gives out between £3,000 and £10,000. And there is the Bereavement Fund. Now, if people within your community have lost a loved one, well, could be a good idea to try and tap into the Bereavement Fund that gives up to £3,000 if they need it for any kind of burial or funeral service. So it could be possible. Every local government also had a discretionary fund. Some of them are closed and some of them are still open, and some that are closed will still be open. So we should look out for the discretionary fund depending on where we are located in our communities. Those funding still do exist. Now, let me pause there for you to ask me some questions so that we can move forward. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and come back to you in person, and then let you ask questions. Okay, who wants to go first? So let me unmute you. Actually, if you just hold on one sec. I'm going to, yeah, you're allowed to unmute yourself, and as you unmute yourself, you'll be able to speak. So you can do so. What questions do you have for me based on what we've shared? I think Ebenezer wants to ask a question, so go ahead. Am I correct, sir? Or is it Reverend Evans who wants to ask a question? No? Okay. Oh.
Yeah, what I wanted to find out that how long does it take for you to be able to access it when you send the application?
Very good question, sir. Very, very good question. Interestingly, with the lottery fund, their first statement was that you will hear from them within 4 weeks. Now, to me, that meant they're going to give a decision within 4 weeks, right? That's what it sounds like. But in practice, that's not what's happening. What they mean by we would get back to you within 4 weeks latest means we will acknowledge your application within 4 weeks. So now,
okay,
we now know from experience that it takes an average. It's still going back to, it's not as, okay, let's say it like this. Before COVID-19, applications were taking anything from 18 weeks to 20 weeks before COVID-19. When COVID-19 came, the funders they started working on a less duration before they respond. But at the moment, it is looking like it is approximately 12 weeks. Between 10 and 12 weeks. That's what we are experiencing. Someone else might experience something else, I don't know, but we're experiencing between 10 and 12 weeks, or 10 and 14 weeks. Not 18 weeks, 14 weeks. Between 10 and 14.
All right.
I think also, if you have been funded before by any funding organization, it is more likely, that's another experience we're having. If people have been funded before with an organization, it's more likely that those people would receive a response faster than those who haven't. That's another thing we're experiencing. Not because the applications will not be funded or the applications are not good. That's not it. But when they go through their checks, it's quicker for them to see that, oh, we funded that person before. Okay, everything tallies. They still have the same trustees. They have the same address. They have the same bank account. Okay, the application is good. Okay, let's fund them. So that's quicker than, okay, we don't know this organization. Okay, let's check at at the charity commission. Let's make sure that they're registered there. Oh, how many trustees do they have? Are they related? Okay, well, we check. Okay, let's check them. All that kind of stuff takes time. And also, this is a very good question, Apostle, because also it's a human being at the other end of the line that evaluates the application. It's not a machine. It's a human being that reads the application. And okay, thank you, Tega. You will answer a question in a minute. And because it's a human being that is answering, sometimes we have discovered that due to COVID-19 and the influx of applications on the funding officers, their workload has increased. And because their workload has increased, they take longer to respond. I'll tell you something else as well. That's why I said this is a very good question. Also, if they come back with a question to you, the longer it takes for you to respond to the question, that also can delay their decision on an application. So there are a lot of factors, but still on average is 10 to 14 weeks. If we can,
Thank you.
Yeah, we used to think it was going to be 4 weeks, as they said. We probably may have told some of our clients that it's going to be 4 weeks, but it's turning out that 4 weeks, 4 weeks means we'll get back to you to let you know we got your application and we're looking at it. That's what's happening.
All right. Thank you.
God bless you, sir. Thank you for that wonderful question. I can go on and on and on about the answer to that question, so I'm just going to stop on that. Tega, please. Tega, raise your hands.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Mr. boomytokan, thank God for the excellent work you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
My question is, we are representing IMAC Gambia.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Gambia is one small country on the west coast of Africa.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Gambia was in South America.
So my question is, with regards to the funding and the grants, countries or nations who are also having challenges with the COVID-19, can countries outside the UK have access to such funding, or is it a UK only funding?
Another very good question. Another very good question. First of all, let me say our experience of funding outside the UK is not very wide. In fact, it's narrow. We are just in the process of developing. Okay, that's not me. Okay, we're in the process of developing our outside the UK. let's see. Okay, I've muted him. All right. So
That's right.
okay, so we're just developing that now. However, one thing I've discovered, well, two things. Number one, okay, let me talk about what I've discovered. For you to raise funding outside the UK, the requirements of raising funds out of the UK has changed now. When I say changed, we've spoken to other experts who have raised funds outside the UK or who deal with a lot of funding outside the UK. So we're working with those kind of organizations. So we're developing our expertise in that area. However, what's happening now is that you have to be ready for funding before you make an application for outside the UK project. What do I mean by that? Now, funders are going first onto your social media pages to see how well your existing projects are running. So they no longer like organizations to raise seed funding without having displayed or before they have run any kind of project that is on social media for everybody to see. So they want to go there first. It is what they view on your social media pages that's going to determine whether you even pass the first phase. So if you don't pass the first phase, it's unlikely that you're going to get funding. The second thing is that funders that fund outside the UK projects, they're also looking for you to have a project plan. A project plan is almost like a business plan. So they're going to request for you. So you're going to be ready with this stuff before you make an application. I'm not saying that there are no organizations that will fund you if you don't have a project plan. I'm not saying that there's no organization that will fund you if you don't have a Facebook page or a website that displays your current projects. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying it's harder. However, and here's another good thing. When you have an organization in the UK, like IMAC does, and you want to raise money for a project outside the UK in the Gambia, for example, people view that as more favorable because you're making the application probably to an organization that has an office in the UK. So therefore, or America, so therefore, they view that as a favorable contact because they already know they can get in touch with an existing organization that resides in the UK. So the point I'm making is, yes, there is funding, but we won't take it on right now. But there is funding, but we do know of funders, and we can help you to access those funding organizations. Obviously, we're going to charge you for it, but we can do that. Okay, I hope I answered Tega's question. All right, shall I move on, or do you have, or what other question do you have for me before we go on? Anybody else have a question for me? Okay, let's. Tega, did you want to say something? Okay, let's go on. So we've looked at a list of funders, and we've kind of talked around, particularly the question that Tega asked and the question that Apostle Stephen asked around, what's the duration? How long does it take from application to money in the bank, so to speak? We've answered those, and now we can start looking at the project. What is funded? Now, this is a critical part of funding. This is a real, we're finding out it's a real important, it's a really important, I thought I muted this person. I don't know why I'm not able to mute. I beg your pardon, please. Let me go over and try and mute. I thought I muted everyone. Okay, mute all. Yes. All right, cool. Right. Okay. Yes. Oops. Let's go out of that. All right, cool. So what is funded? Now, sometimes an organization does not have a clear funding focus. It is extremely important that you develop a clear funding focus that gives you a comparative advantage. Let me rephrase that. Let me say it another way. You may not have a clear funding focus in the beginning, but as you move on in your funding efforts, you got to now come up with, it's critical to come up with a funding focus that places you in a position of advantage over other people applying for the same funding to deliver the same projects. What I mean by that is this, right? Any organization can apply for funding to give food to a group of people who have been affected by COVID-19, for example. So you're looking at maybe, oh, we want to, so you write an application that says, or you want to focus on, we want to give food to people in the community who are hungry, who have lost their jobs, right? Okay, that's good, right? But that's not as good as we want to give food to single parents, women who have more than 3 children. You see, I've niched it now. So we're not only giving food, we're giving food to single parents, we're giving food to women, we're giving food to women who have children over 3 siblings. So that has niched you, that has provided you with a critical advantage over somebody who just says, oh, I want money so I can give food. So when we're looking at what is funded, also I want you to bear in mind that the more you can niche your funding project, the more you can niche your project, the better it's going to be, the more likely you're going to get funding, because sometimes some funding pots are very competitive. And the more competitive a funding becomes, the more stringent the funders will apply criteria. So you want to be in a position whereby whatever criteria they apply, your application is so strong because it's so focused on a particular group of people that they need the funding, that you are more likely to get the funding. So I want you to understand that it's very important to our funding efforts. Okay, so let's go on and look at fundable projects. Like I said, even right now, till now, delivery of food is still an important part of not only the lottery fund that we're talking about, or many other funds like that, but also the London Community Fund, the Esme Fairbank Fund, Power to Change Fund, that's a new one that just come out. All these fundings, they're still funding delivery of food. They're still funding, but for us to make our own applications stand out, we need to niche the market, the people that we want to fund. Okay, I'll tell you something. This is the truth. This is amazing. We had a client whose turnover, because I'm going to say some things in a moment. I'm going to say, okay, if your turnover is there. Okay, I'll leave that story until then, right? Okay, right, here we go. Essential medicine, providing financial advice. If you can deliver services, providing financial advice, you could, you know what, and you can niche this and say, we're providing financial advice to women over 40, or we're providing financial advice to women over 50, or we're providing financial advice to the 20 plus, or providing financial advice to the 60 plus, whatever it is. Try and niche your projects. Don't leave it too flabby, too wide. Sometimes we're afraid that we're concerned, not afraid, we're concerned that if we niche our projects, we may not get the money. Actually, that's not true. You are more likely to get the money if you can niche your project. You niche it down to a particular group of people. Funders like funding particular groups. It may mean that you cannot go to every funder. You don't go to every funder anyway. You don't have time to go to every funder. You don't really have the time. Even us who raise funding for organizations, for people like yourselves, we don't go to every funder because we don't have time for that. We have to pick the funders that we know, at least we believe, will fund your projects. And we go to those ones only. Don't try and make your funding fit with a funder who is not funding that type of request. Don't bother with it. Just go somewhere else. So here we go. People to overcome liquidity issues, cash flow issues, or core costs. They'll fund core costs are some of your overheads as it relates to the project or where you're running the project from. So let me say something for those organizations that have maybe buildings in this time. Now, we're raising some funding for some organizations that have buildings because they're renovating their buildings and stuff like that. So we're helping them to, or they're rebuilding it. We're helping them to raise funding for such things. Now, when those buildings are complete, and this applies to anyone that has a building now or that will have a building at some point, when you apply for funding, and sometimes we may not know this, but it's true, when you apply for funding to deliver a project, if that project is going to be held in your building, you can apportion some of the costs of that building to that project. So let me say it another way. Let's say you're delivering financial advice to the over 60s, and they're going to come to your building to receive that financial advice face to face, for example. Therefore, you can charge to the project the cost of them spending time in your building. So if your building monthly is costing you maybe £3,000 a month, and the project is going to spend 1 week in that building, you may say, okay, 4 weeks times, or 4 weeks divided by 3,000. Somebody help me with my maths. That's about £800, £850 a month, a week. So therefore, because the project is going to be there for 1 week, therefore, cost of the rent is $850 for that project. So that project pays for 1 week of their time within your building. So therefore, just imagine if you now have 3 different projects that are running, that are all occupying a week each for the next 6 months. So that means that the project can actually be paying for most of your rent. So that's the way people do it. That's how people get around the fact of being able to pay for their buildings. So it's important for us to know that. Also, many funders will fund staffing costs, volunteer costs, other costs or supplies. If you're buying stationery, if you're buying equipment, there are funders that will fund, I know some funders that will fund a kitchen. If your kitchen is being used for, maybe you're training people how to cook, and then you want to remodernize your kitchen. Yeah, there's some funders that will fund that. Let me pause again. I'll let you ask some questions. Good. What questions do you have for me? Okay, is it PJ?
Hello, Pastor Bumi.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Not too bad. Thank you for the presentation thus far. I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Is there any limit to the amount of funding that one can apply, please?
Okay, that's another very good question. In practice, there is limit. In theory, there is no limit. And then they say, well, what are you saying? Well, an organization cannot go from, you see, let's say it like this. Funding is a different stream of income. Therefore, you have to progress down the line and build your credibility, your track record, and build yourself up to arrive at a place where you can access larger amounts of funding. So in other words, it is almost near impossible. I'm not saying that this is not possible at all and you won't find somebody who has done it and stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that, but it's very difficult. Let me use that word then. It's very difficult to go from I've never raised funding to I want to apply for 100,000 and I'm going to get it. That's hard. That's really hard going. Because there are certain criteria that are unspoken that affects the amount of funding you can raise. Number one, the biggest one of it is your existing turnover. Funders do not like to give more than 20% of your turnover in funding. They don't like it. They do it sometimes, but they don't like it. So if, let's say, your turnover is 100,000, funders don't want to give you more than 20,000 in a grant. Because in their mind, well, you know, you've not demonstrated you can manage. So if you apply for 250,000, you probably won't get it. No matter what they say. Because sometimes the funders release certain funding. Let me just give you a personal experience. We've applied for a client who has a turnover less than 50K. We've applied for a 250,000 pounds funding. We didn't get it. Not because our application wasn't good, but it's an unspoken rule that they won't give you. That's like 5 times your turnover. No, they're not going to do that. So that can limit the amount of funding you can get. The other thing is, if you are very connected locally, you're more likely to raise higher levels of funding. So for example, we work with some organizations who are extremely connected locally. I mean, they can get letters from MP, they can get letters from local organizations. They're just connected. Now, that kind of organization, because of the, and this is strange, you know, and we've tried this, we say, okay, you go get a letter from your MP that supports you, that recommends you, and we'll attach it to your application. And even when the application, the application does not warrant us to attach the letter, well, we send the application off online, and then when they acknowledge that, oh, we receive application, then we'll follow it up. By the way, we want to send you this letter as well. And we tried it. And that organization accessed their funding in record time. It's the quickest we've ever received funding for somebody. I think it was like under eight weeks. And that was the first time they've applied for funding in a long time. And it's like almost 10 years difference when they apply for funding, and because they saw the letter and they're like, okay, this is a done deal, just, you know. you got to understand something. Thank you. You got to understand something, that there are certain organizations that are good for funders to fund. Let me say that again. There are some organizations locally that funders are actually looking to fund those type of organizations. So whilst we think that a funder may not want to fund us, maybe it's because we're not positioned in the right way yet. When we get there, when we get to the place where we're positioned accurately, funders will seek you and actually ask you whether you need money for your projects. Because it is to their own interest to fund you, and it's to their own publicity to fund you. Because everybody wants to fund an organization that is so entrenched in the community. So funders are also looking for somebody to fund. Whilst we're going out, we're writing applications for people, they're also looking, I think we need to fund those people, because they're doing great work. Oh, we should fund them because, look, they've helped so many people. We see them everywhere. So therefore, the more of a track record you build, and you can just start where you are. Don't worry about it. But however, I must say this, funding is a long-term game. It's not a short-term game. It's not a case of, I'm going to start today and then I'm going to by tomorrow, no, it's not going to work like that. It's not like that. It doesn't work. But you can get to a point where you are funding, you are delivering projects in the community, so many projects that your salary is being paid by the funding because of the number of projects you're delivering. And your staff salary is being paid because of the number of projects that you're delivering. You can get there. That is possible. That's not a dream. That's a reality that other people experience. There's some organizations that fund the project manager salary in a year. And I've seen that, where they fund a project manager salary over £28,000 in salary cost for project manager, given to the project manager, over £28,000 every year to the project manager for a few years, because that project manager is delivering projects within the community. So, yeah. I think I've given you a long answer, PJ. You start asking me those kind of questions, and I'm going to give you long answers. But I hope I've answered your question in all that.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Very grateful.
Bless you, sir. Okay, so let me take one more question before I go on. All right. Okay, I'll move forward then. So we've shared on funding and all manners of stuff. So let's go on. Let's look at what are direct and indirect effects of COVID-19. What do funders categorize as direct effect or indirect effect of COVID-19? Well, direct effect includes, people who have lost their lives. If people have died as a result of COVID-19, well, that's a direct effect. Maybe a spouse has died, or somebody's husband or somebody's wife has died as a result, and now children have become orphans, or somebody's sick in hospital as a result of COVID-19. That's a direct effect of COVID-19. Yeah, and there are always funding. If you can a bereavement counselor, or you want to have a service that helps orphans who have lost their orphans who are residing in a particular area because they are now made orphans since both parents died, or one parent died, or whatever. Then there's funding for that. But many of our funds, many of our applications will probably, and we thank God for that, will probably rest on indirect effect. So we're hearing noise, so I'm going to go over and
how do we give you assignment
and mute all again. Just give me a second, please, everyone.
But many of us
mute all.
when God gives us.
Okay, good. Right. That person is listening to a service at the same time. Anyway, so indirect effects by COVID-19. Somebody's lost their job, so that's an indirect effect. Somebody has mental issues, that's an indirect effect. Or somebody has poor health, that's an indirect effect. So the effect of lockdown on people is an effect that can result in funding. There's one avenue that we need to explore, and we probably don't like talking about this in the BAME community, which is domestic abuse. There are lots of people, there's lots of funding around domestic abuse that is exacerbated because of the lockdown period. And there's a lot of funding around that now. People are now closely looking at funding those types of projects because, you know, it's a reality that takes place in the lives of many people, quite a few people. So if you have a project that can deal with domestic abuse, it's a good one for funding. Okay, let me pause again and give you an opportunity to ask me any questions. Do you have a question for me, or should I go on? Okay, because we're running after 8 now, I'm going to move a little bit fast. Okay.
Yeah, that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So, Bishop, what time are we finishing? Can I ask Bishop?
Yeah, I think we can go on a little bit because of the grounds that need to be covered. And,
okay. Do you want to give me a time you want me to finish, please? It's three minutes past 8 right now, sir.
Say 8:30.
Okay, fine. All right, cool. All right, let's go. We'll endeavor to finish before 8:30. So we'll be done before 8:30. So if you need to go somewhere, just know we'll be done before 8:30. So on your application, watch out for making sure your project is a user-led project. Now, gone were the days when we will go out and create a project and then say, oh, we want everybody in the community to come to this project, blah, blah. Now, funders don't like that. They want it to be that the community itself requested the project. The community itself wanted the project. And how do you do that? All you need to do is start by talking to 5 people who you think may require the kind of project you want to offer, and then get their input and get them to come along with you to create the project and to have this project together with the community with the beneficiaries of the project. Also, you can use online methods or in-person methods. Online methods, of course, if you are doing a survey, or in person, if you're asking and talking to people directly. You can do group relationship building via Facebook and WhatsApp. Funders are now looking out for your online activities to determine where they're going to fund your project. So we need to start creating, I think we did a course on this when we spoke in our masterclass last month. We looked at this. So, or you're making telephone calls, and like I said, you're using survey reports. So yeah, so yeah, that's it. We're gonna stop. Let's take some final questions before we close off this section of holding on funding for BAME group leaders and community leaders and faith leaders. So do you have any what questions do you have for me, anyone? Okay, let me ask, what have you got from this evening? What have you got from this evening? What's the one thing that you're going away with this evening? What's the one thing?
Right, just the fact that there are a lot of fundings available that we can access, but we need to have the right way of how to approach it. It's not just that you just write application anyhow.
Yeah.
You need to first be organized in writing your application and the areas that you need to hit in order for that for that application to be accepted. So
Yeah.
basically, proper way of organizing yourself when you want to raise funds. So far as you do that, it doesn't matter how long it takes. You'll be able to be granted something. You know?
Yeah, and I like what you said, Apostle, that no matter how long it takes, because you know, a lot of people give up, and that's a very sad part for us when people just give up, because you need not give up, really. It's like I said, it's a journey, and you will get the funding as long as you keep. Somebody asks you a question, maybe you don't have this, okay, you go get it, and you just manage your activities and you manage yourself. After a while, you will start access. And what's interesting is that once you access one fund, it's then easier to access the next one, and the next one, and the next one. As long as you keep delivering the projects, you will have funding, because funders need to give out the money to deliver projects. And they're looking for people like you who are going to deliver the project, so they will fund you. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're gonna pause this part, and I'm gonna show you some other things. So let's just pause this part. Really thank everyone who has come to join us on this and has heard about the Holding On Project and how Holding On Project has actually been sponsored by the Lottery Fund and the government, and how Holding On Project has taught many of us who are faith leaders and community leaders how to access funding. So